Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Dell Match Play Data Dive Show. Exciting evening for me personally as I am attempting to dual stream for the first time. Normally I'm on YouTube Live. I am attempting to also stream to Twitch. Please, if you're watching from Twitch, first of all, welcome, and jump in chat. Let me know how it's going. Is the audio fine? Is the video okay? Earlier today when I was testing, it was a bit laggy on the Twitch side, so by all means, please jump in there and let me know how that's going. But not only an exciting evening for me, but an exciting day for the Dell Match Play. The pods were drawn and revealed, so there is a lot to go over there, as well as the usual data that we'll be digging into for the Dell Match Play. So a lot to get into. Before I forget, the DFS Tactics show will be tomorrow night, Tuesday evening, at the same time, 9 p.m. Eastern. With the Dell Match Play starting Wednesday morning, we're going to have to get the lineups in a day early. So make sure you set your reminders for that. The DFS Tactics show will be tomorrow, and then Wednesday evening will be the full show of the Corrales Punta Cana. That will be the initial research, the data dive, and the DFS all in one show Wednesday evening. So fun-filled week. A lot to get into this week with the double tournaments. But let's get through this intro so we can dig into the data. All statistics tonight and every night are provided by FantasyNational.com. It's an amazing resource. Go check them out. It is simply the best tool out there. I would not be able to do what I do without them. It is well worth the investment. Go check them out. In the description of the video, at least for YouTube, there are links to my social media. I believe they're there on Twitch. I'm hoping they are. There are links to my social media that where I place my betting cards, any interesting research that I find throughout the week leading into the tournament or tournaments. I usually try to do that on Tuesdays, but it'll be hectic to try to get into that with the attempt at the dual stream. I wanted to try to do that today. We'll try to get to it tomorrow. But make sure to give me a follow at the social media links that are in the descriptions. And then there is also an email in the description for the YouTube video to get in contact with me if you want to be a part of bonus content. Things such as bonus videos, my tournament fact sheet, which lists my favorite fades and pivots, my best bets and whatnot. So if you want to be a part of that content, reach out to the email there. And then finally, I alluded to it, chat is open, both YouTube and Twitch. Want the interaction, so join me. What are you thinking about for the Dell this week? Who are some players that you're maybe looking at or avoiding? Any storylines that you think will be major going into it? Or if you want to talk a little bit about March Madness and your brackets, that's good too. I am fortunate that my rooting interest has made it to the Sweet 16, so hopefully if your team is not in there, that your brackets are still going strong. And if you just want to jump in chat and make fun of me, because that's well warranted too. So by all means, jump in the chat. So let's dig into the data for the 2022 Dell Match Play. And we transition over here to the GCSAA. The tournament fact sheet, which was not out last night, came out earlier today for the Dell Match Play, and a lot of this will be review from last evening, but if you have not caught that show, make sure to do so. But to do a quick review here, Austin Country Club, the Dell Match Play has been here since I believe 2016. It is a par 71. Just over 7,100 yards. The stimp is 12. I mentioned last night, it's always fast Bermuda Greens. Don't think they've ever played Lightning, at least not at Austin Country Club. So we're going to be looking at fast Bermuda for putting statistics. Pardon me while I make sure I have chat up. Hey, Rich. Hey, thanks for letting me know that at least on YouTube it's going well. So, how have you been? I don't think I've seen you in the past couple weeks. Did you have a good Valspar? Hopefully you had Sam Burns, either outright wagers or used him quite a bit with the right pivots, say Matthew Neesmith, and Davis Riley. I've been using Davis Riley a lot this season, and the one time I don't use him, he actually plays well on the weekend, which is my luck. But hopefully you've been doing well, Richard, and glad you could check in. So coming back to Austin Country Club here, the green size is about 5,500 square feet, slightly smaller than the tour average of 6,000, but by no means a major factor, say Pebble Beach or anything like that. There are a lot of bunkers here in play, and I believe last night I mentioned that there were 6 holes with water in play, and I did a quick cursory look on Pro Visualizer for that. The GCSAA is listing it as 7, so I will absolutely defer to them and say that there are 7 holes with water in play. But again, the majority of that is on the early part of the back 9, 12, 13, I believe 11 has water in front too. But so there are places to get in trouble here, which makes the tournament fun from a viewer's perspective. We mentioned last night that guys have to go for birdies if they want to win their holes and in conjunction their match. So it brings a lot of danger into play, and again, it's just a fun viewing event, especially because this is a Pete Dye design, and we know what Pete Dye does with eye lines and angles of attack on golf courses. So to me, this is the perfect course to put a risk-reward format such as match play on. You've got a risk-reward course for a risk-reward event. So I think it's a really, really good match. The greens are Bermuda. They are overseeded with Poa Trivialis, but they play true to Bermuda. And we have Bermuda all through the rest of the course as well, fairways, rough, and whatnot. So that is a kind of a look from the GCSAA as far as the technicalities of the course. So the biggest things, a short par 71, fast Bermuda greens, not lightning, but fast Bermuda greens. There is a little bit of water in play, and Pete Dye. So we're going to be looking at several metrics to start our data dive, most notably Pete Dye, short course metrics, and we'll get into the rest here in a bit. So that's it for the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. I'm going to close that out, and we're going to go to the Fantasy National kind of home page, if you will. And normally I don't bring up the DraftKings pricing in the Data Dive show, but with one less day, I decided to go ahead and bring in the DraftKings slate, or the DraftKings page, instead of just the field by Fantasy National. I will cover DFS Tactics tomorrow. If you want to have a bit of a discussion, I don't mind, but there will be a lot more DFS focus tomorrow. But in fact, I'm going to narrow this down into the past 6 months, and let's see, with the 6-month timeline being September 14th, that is conveniently the start of the 2022 PGA Tour season at the Fortinet. So right now I'm just going to filter for the 2022 season and just get a look at the top performers this PGA Tour season with no filters, no easy, no Pete Dye, just your top performers. And unfortunately, I was hoping that the Valspar would be loaded into Fantasy National. I just saw Moose's Twitter feed that they are still waiting from the PGA Tour on that. So out of my hands, out of his hands, just waiting on that data. So this will be should be the same as last night. And then tomorrow we'll definitely have the update as we build our lineups. But anyway, the top 10 performers in the PGA Tour season are Russell Henley, Justin Thomas, Scotty Scheffler, Jon Rahm, Tom Hoge, Sung Jae, Taylor Gooch, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, and Billy Horschel are your top 10. That's to be expected. You've got, surprisingly, Russell Henley is number one, even though he hasn't won. He's seemingly been in the top 5 numerous times. I know the Sony, he was way ahead, and then Hideki caught him. Justin Thomas, no explanation needed. Scotty Scheffler's won twice. Jon Rahm, number 1 player in the world. Hoagie's won. M1 in the fall. So a lot of your event winners already, and then Henley, who has been playing some extremely good golf as of late. We did a little bit of focus into him last night, but from the Shriners on, he just hasn't missed a cut. He's just playing really, really well, including a top 15 at the Players. I believe he top 30'd, maybe even top 20'd the Valspar. So again, just solid golf from Russell Henley. So I think one of the first things that we always do once we look at the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, we always look at putting, green type, the green speeds, and again, I'm only going to use fast. In fact, let me bring up the past course conditions and explain why I'm only using fast. Since 2016, I've got all that highlighted for you. Hopefully you can see that still. It has always been fast, never lightning, never average, certainly not Velcro. It's just been fast, so I'm pretty darn confident that fast Bermuda is the way to go. And another thing we mentioned last night is that the wind picks up, and that's very common for Texas events and then short course. So I'll leave this up just in case we want to come back to it. But one of the first things we always do is we look at the putting surface and see who's been putting really well. So for Bermuda Greens that are fast by Fantasy National standards, there are only 12 rounds. So even though this is all the way back to the beginning of the PGA Tour season, with only 12 rounds, and Brian Harmon is the 12, you've got the RSM Classic that's back into the fall. So honestly, I think what I'm going to do, instead of bringing it out and seeing more of a baseline or a baseline view or a more comprehensive view, I'm actually going to narrow this in a little bit and really get specific. Let's look at putting statistics from February 1st, and I'm just doing an arbitrary February 1st. If you wanted to go to January 1st, actually, you know what? Let's do January 1st because the Sony is obviously in January. So from the beginning of the calendar year, these are only 7 rounds most of any of these players. So this gives you a very good idea of who's really hot with the putter, at least on fast Bermuda Greens. So your top 10 performers on fast Bermuda Greens since the beginning of the calendar year, not PGA Tour season, but calendar year. Patrick Reed, Kevin Kisner, Tyrrell Hatton, Scotty Scheffler, Billy Horschel, Sergio, Patrick Cantlay, Lucas Herbert, Taylor Gooch, and Brooks Koepka. Again, Taylor Gooch, his win on Bermuda at the RSM. Good stuff here. Seeing Sergio anywhere near the top of a putting leaderboard is shocking. Billy Horschel, we're on Bermuda. Anytime we're on Bermuda, you got to think Billy Horschel. Scotty Scheffler has been putting very well lately. Patrick Reed's always been known as a really good putter. I think he prefers Bermuda, in fact. No, he prefers Bent. So, but always a good putter. And he's been putted well. I mean, look at the Players. That's what his big contributing thing was to why he was played as well as he did to get in the top 30. Because otherwise, it wasn't really all that good. And you can see here, I mean, Patrick Reed just hasn't been good in general lately. So we'll see if the putter stays hot. and in a format where if you make a bunch of putts, you're going to win a lot of matches. With that, I'm going to take off the Bermuda and the Fast, and I am going to do the last 6 months. Let's look at short course metrics, knowing that this is about a 7,100 yard course at a par 71. We have 26 rounds in the PGA Tour season that are on short courses, so that'll be plenty. Your top performers on short courses in the PGA Tour season are Seamus Power, Tom Hoge, Victor Hovland, Taylor Gooch, Patrick Cantlay, Mac Hughes, Jordan Spieth, Keith Mitchell, Russell Henley, and Daniel Berger. Let's see, Seamus Power, number one. Let's see where his success is coming from here. Let's see, you've got the Pebble Beach where he played pretty well, the Amex, Sony, and then more in the fall. And you can see a lot of these events are not measured just due to being international. So really he's only got, 4 tournaments that are being measured here, 16 rounds roughly. But Seamus Power has been playing really well on those short courses. Tom Hoge, winner at Pebble Beach, makes a whole lot of sense. Victor Hovland won at Mayakoba, a short course. Gooch at the RSM, so makes a lot of sense here. Then let's take off the short course and let's look at Pete Dye. And even though we have been focusing on this PGA Tour season 2022, you'll see that there's just not enough rounds. There's only 6. So this I am going to bring out to the last roughly calendar year. I am going to do a custom range of April the 1st and take off, I meant to take off that filter. Okay, so Pete Dye, 18 rounds, that'll be fine. So your top performers in the past calendar year on Pete Dye designs are Corey Connors, Shane Lowry, Abraham Answer, Paul Casey, Harold Varner III, Sung Jae, Keegan, DJ, Colin Morikawa, and Louis Oosthuizen. So again, more guys that are playing well. DJ coming off two pretty good events, to be honest with you. The Players wasn't exactly what he was perhaps expecting or wanting after how well he putt. And then the Valspar. Valspar was really, really, really good. So the DJ is starting to round into form, and he's coming to a course similar to TBC Sawgrass, similar to the Copperhead course. DJ generally plays Austin Country Club well. He has won here in the past, I believe it was 2017. So you get DJ on a course that he's comfortable with and he's had success with. No matter what his form is, you always got to look out for DJ, especially when prior course history is in his favor. So there's a lot to like with DJ this week, at least in terms of the Pete Dye, narrative. HV3 Paul Casey has always played Pete Dye courses well. 2-time winner at the Valspar previously. Let's see, Corey Connors. Let's see what his 13 rounds are. So he's at the Heritage last year, and then the PGA out at Kiowa Island. Then you've got the one course at the Amex, and then the Players. So the RBC Heritage last year, how did he do at that? I believe it wasn't too bad. Yeah, he was top 5. So he was top 5 at the RBC Heritage. He topped 20 at the PGA. So a lot to like there with Corey Connors in the Pete Dye narrative as well. Let's see. The last thing that I think I'm going to look at least from a kind of an overview type deal here. Anyone that has followed me for any length of time knows that I just prefer strokes gained approach. To me, it is the most indicative statistic for long-term success. And I am going to narrow this in a little bit to the last 36 rounds, but we're going to keep it on the 2022 PGA Tour season. So for this PGA Tour season, Your top strokes gained approach players: Russell Henley, Will Zalatoris, Victor Hovland, Tom Hoagie, Luke List, JT, Paul Casey, John Rahm, Taylor Gooch, and Eric Van Rooyen. And EVR, another player that had a pretty darn good Valspar, if I remember. I know it's only been a couple days, but I've slept since then. So, good stuff there. I think that is going to be it for the kind of the overview, or even the review from last night. We mentioned last night that there wasn't a lot of data that we can gather. We have the scorecard info, obviously, but there is no strokes gained by shot type, no strokes gained by hole by par, no approach shot distribution. Really, all we have is the scoring distribution around a par, and due to the nature of the format, it is easy. The course is going to play easy. Lots of birdies, even a few eagles, and really not that many bogeys and doubles. So we're going to definitely be looking at birdies or better, probably opportunities gained as well. This week, we don't have any putting statistics. The single round scores are really messed up just due to the nature of the format. So not a lot to look at there. So last night, and again, if you haven't caught that show, make sure you go watch it after I get off here. But I built a kind of a mimic approach shot distribution per Pro Visualizer, and I built the what's the chart, the layout where it has all the different ranges of the par 3s, par 4s, par 5s. That the name of the chart or the graph is escaping me, but I built that in Microsoft Excel as well. So the biggest thing that I remember, there are 4 par 4s that measure from 350 to 400. There are 4 par 4s that measure from 450 to 500, and all 3 par 5s measure from 550 to 600, at least on the scorecard. Now, yeah, they'll measure different lengths as they move tees and such, but the biggest thing to take from the breakdown tab in Fantasy National is it's very easy. I mean, you have to come all the way to the 3rd hardest hole before you're over par. Generally speaking, somewhere between 9th and 10th, you would, if the course is true average, somewhere in between 9 and 10 would be where par is for that course. You have to come all the way to the 3rd toughest before you're over par. So lots and lots and lots of birdies. The par 5s yield eagles at a very good clip. Even the short par 4s can yield eagles. So again, that's why I think I'm going to be focusing on birdies or better. Perhaps it is right or prudent to put eagles alone in there, but I think I'm focusing on birdies or better. So anyway, with that said, let's move on to said birdies and bogeys. And we'll just get an overview here for the 2022 season. Your players that are your top 10, let's go to the birdies or better since I'm talking about it. Your top 10 birdies or better gained players this PGA Tour season: Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, Cameron Young, Patrick Cantlay, Luke List, Joaquin Niemann, Colin Morikawa, and Mackenzie Hughes. Hughes is a little bit surprising. I don't remember him having a tremendous amount of success. Okay, a lot of it's coming from the fall. He solo second at the RSM, top 5 to the Zozo. Okay, he had a pretty darn good fall, to be fair, but has not played well recently. And I know he missed the cut at the Valspar as well. So, okay, seeing him 10th is a bit of a surprise to me. But since we're on this tab, those were your top 10 birdies or better gained. So I'm going to move over one column. I'm not going to resort it, but your players that are top 10 in both opportunities and birdies or better. So you've got Victor Hovland is 6th in opportunities, second and birdies are better. Justin Thomas is first and third. Henley, fourth and fourth. Cameron Young, second and fifth. Luke List, fourth in opportunities, seventh in birdies or better. And Colin Morikawa is seventh and ninth. I think it would be fair to give Jon Rahm an honorable mention, third in opportunities, 11th in birdies or better. So, again, I'm going to probably be putting quite a bit of weight into the birdies or better. You're just going to have to score low to win your matches, win the holes, win the matches, move on. And especially as we'll cover in the DFS Tactics tomorrow, with the scoring system different than in a classic style contest, holes won is just the bread and butter. You've got to get the players that you think are going to win a bunch of holes and move on into the bracket, as opposed to just going bowing out in the pods per se. Let's see. So I think that pretty well covers that page. What I will do, I am going to look at Pete Dye. I'm going to add this Pete Dye architect. I do want to see who plays well on Pete Dye courses, who gives themselves opportunities, who converts those opportunities. So again, it should be 19 rounds. Okay. Actually, I need a custom date range that. It's April the 1st that I've been looking at for Pete Dye. So it should be 18 now. Yep. All right, so your top 10 birdies or better gained players on Pete Dye courses the past calendar year. You got DJ and Brooks, both number 1. Fitzpatrick, Scheffler, Lowry round out the top 5. Patrick Reed 6th. Terrell Hatton, Paul Casey, Justin Rose, and Seamus Power are your top 10. And again, I'll do the same for opportunities gained. So your players that are top 10 in both opportunities and birdies or better. You got DJ 10th and 1st, Brooks 2nd and 1st, Shane Lowry 9th and 5th, and you have Seamus Power 8th and 10th. Victor Hovland, an honorable mention, 2nd in opportunities, 11th in birdies or better. So good stuff there. Again, is it too much of a Pete Dye focus? Yeah, maybe, but that is one of the metrics that we know we can gather here. Another one is going to be short courses. So I'm going to, again, bring this back in, put the 2022 season filter on, and let's go short courses. Who play or who gives themselves the most opportunities and then converts those birdies or better on short courses. So your top 10 birdies or better gained players on short courses: Seamus Power, Luke List, Victor Hovland, Tom Hoge, Patrick Cantley, Mac Hughes, Louis, Russell Henley, Taylor Gooch, Keith Mitchell, and Justin Thomas. With the only player being in the top 10 in both opportunities and birdies or better on short courses is Russell Henley. Let's see, I'm trying to think of all of the guys that have been showing up on the birdies or better and opportunities, no matter which way we've been slicing and dicing it. Seems like Seamus Power was there on the Pete Dye. Hoagie, I think, was there on the short course. We are on the short course. Hoagie was there on something else. Henley's been up here quite a bit. Taylor Gooch has been up here quite a bit. I think last thing I'm going to do, because we know the format is all about attacking pins and trying to get as many birdies as you can, and bogeys, double bogeys, quadruple bogeys be damned. Let's actually look at easy courses and see what that is going to tell us. So our top 10 birdies or better gained players on easy or in easy rounds: Justin Thomas, Cameron Young, Victor Hovland, Patrick Cantley, Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts, Jon Rahm, Russell Henley, Colin Morikawa, HV3, and Mac Hughes. Justin Thomas, no explanation needed. Cameron Young, I believe his is at the Genesis. So Genesis, Honda is short. Okay. Arnold Palmer is not short by any means, or easy. The Genesis, I believe, played easy this year. I think maybe the Honda did as well. I can't remember. So that makes a lot of sense. Bermuda, good. He is not his best when it's easy. And a little bit of foreshadowing here. The last I looked, Windfinder was having a little bit of fun with the wind, at least the projections. So you might look at it here at the end of the show, but as a guarantee, we always look at Windfinder when we look at our DFS lineups and try to figure out our strategies to see if there's any kind of split. Normally AM, PM, and all that stuff, but we'll see what the wind is doing tomorrow and perhaps factor in some windy metrics. So I think that's a pretty good way to cover birdies are better and opportunities. Par threes, there's really not a lot to go on. You've got one par three that is, I believe, 150 to 175. That one there. Two. So you got two from 175 to 200, and then one that's over 200 or in the 200 to 225. But seeing this so close to 175 to 200, it looks like all three could conceivably play in the 175 to 200. I don't know. What I do know is that I was impressed. Maybe not impressed, but I was looking at the par fours a little bit earlier today, and specifically the 450 to 500. So you've got the second toughest hole in that range, 450 500. You got the toughest hole in that range. You've got the fourth toughest in that range, and there is one more I'm not seeing. 450 to 500, 450 to 500. Oh, there it is, the 11th toughest. So. Three of the four toughest holes are par fours measured from 450 to 500 yards. And then you've got the 11th, which, is still a quarter of a shot under par, but by no means is the easiest hole on the course. So as I saw that today, I kind of wanted to take a look at par fours from 450 to 500 yards, since the three of the four toughest holes fall into this range. So guys who are able to play that well should be gaining an advantage on the other players in the field. So with no other filters, no peak dye, no short course, nothing, just flat out par 4 scoring on par 4s 450 to 500 yards this PGA Tour season. Victor Hovland, Billy Horschel, Cameron Young, Justin Thomas, Sebastian Munoz, Alex Noren, John Rahm, DJ, McNeely, Louis, Sungjae, Tom Hoagie, and Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts all tied for 10th. So it explains a lot. Explains a lot. Billy Horschel is starting to heat up a little bit. Victor Hovland been playing great golf. JT, Noren, who loves this event. DJ, John Rahm. So I did want to take a look at that. I know we didn't look at that last night, and as I was doing my research today, I happened to notice that on the scorecard. So is it a bit of a stretch? Sure. But with the limited set of data, we have to try to find whatever data or statistic we can maybe exploit. And that was something that I thought maybe could be a factor, since, again, three of the four toughest holes fall into this bucket here. Lastly, let's look at par 5s, and all three par 5s on the scorecard do measure 550 to 600. So let's take a look at par 5 and 550 to 600 scoring for the players in the field. And again, no filters, no anything, just straight PGA Tour season, par 5 and par 5, 550 to 600 scoring. In the par 5s, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, Max Homa, Matt Fitzpatrick, Seamus Power, Russell Henley, Victor Hovland, Tyrrell Hatton, John Rahm, and Maverick McNeely are the top 10. And then going over here to the 550 and 600s, the players that are top 10 in both, you've got Scotty Scheffler first in overall par 5, third of the length. You've got Max Homa, third and first, so the literal inverse of Scheffler. Fitzpatrick, fourth and fourth. Russell Henley, sixth and ninth. Tyrrell Hatton, seventh and seventh. John Rahm, an honorable mention, ninth and 12th. Cantley, honorable mention, second and 11th. So good stuff there. That is about what we covered last night, and as much data as we can really get into as far as Fantasy National is concerned. Just because of the format, there's not a lot of data they can gather. So bear with me. I'm going to bring up a spreadsheet that I had worked on today. Let me switch the view for you all. Bring chat back up because I have 8 million tabs open. Only a slight exaggeration. This is a spreadsheet that I've put together going back to 2016, which is the first year that the match play was played here at Austin Country Club. So here I've got the records of how they performed, and then if they made the bracket round, if the person's in bold, they beat that player and then lost. So for example, Brooks Koepka went 2-1 in the pod play in 2016, beat Matt Kuchar in the round of 16, and then lost to Jason Day in the quarterfinals. So the players that performed well that first year it moved to Austin Country Club, you have Brooks, DJ went 2-1 and made the quarters. Jordan Spieth went 3-0 and then lost to Louis, who ended up being runner-up. So Louis went 3-0. Like I said, made the runner-up. Kevin Na was 2-0-1, got beat in a playoff to not make it to the bracket. Patrick Reed, 3-0. Sergio, 2-1. You'll see a theme with Sergio here in a bit. So that was 2016, and we moved over. I did this for every year: 2017, 2018, 19, which I don't think you can see. No, 19, 20, of course, being canceled due to the pandemic, and then last year's 2021. So the biggest thing I wanted to show is the record from 2016 forward, how these players have played, specifically when the match play was here at Austin Country Club, and then their final result. So, for example, you have Abraham Answer, who has been 4-2-0, has never made the bracket round, but he has been 2-1 both years. Adam Scott, 1-1-1, so he's only played it once, even though he's qualified, I believe, every year. He's normally taken this event off. I spoke about Alex Norton earlier. He loves this event. He is 8-1-0. And before I get too much further, let me explain the records. It goes wins, losses, and ties or halves. So wins, losses, halves. So Alex Norton's 8-1. He's made it to the Elite Eight. Sorry, I'm in March Madness mode. So quarterfinals and semifinals. Billy Horschel, your defending champion, only 4-4-1. But when he does make the bracket round, he's pretty darn good. Brian Harmon, the same way. He's 4-1-1. His 2 trips here to the Dell Match Play, he's made the bracket round both times. Brooks Koepka, 5-3-1. He's made it twice. Bubba Watson, 7-3-5. He won in 2018. He is 3-for-5 of making the bracket rounds. Obviously, if a player has no record, he's never played it. Morikawa, granted it was last year, it was his first time, he did not play it well. Corey Connors, 0-3. Let's see, some other players that might stand out. DJ, former champion, 7-7-1. He's been Jekyll and Hyde. He has either done very, very well or has went 0-3, or maybe 0-2-1. There is no in between with DJ. It is all or nothing. Let's see, HV3 only one time, or I'm sorry, that's Eric Van Royen. He did beat out DJ last year. He was in the pod. Ian Poulter, probably no explanation needed. Ryder Cupper, he's 8-1 in the group stage. Has made the bracket rounds two of his 3 times here. Let's see, John Rahm, 6-3-3, with a runner-up to DJ. Jordan Spieth, 9-3-3. Has played it extremely well. Has only made the bracket round 2 of the 5 times, but is generally really competitive in the pod system. Justin Rose, 3-1-2. Justin Thomas, 6-8-1. Kisner loves this event, 9-5-1. A runner-up and a champion when he's made it to the bracket stages. Kevin Na has played this event very well too, 7-6-2. Lee Westwood, Louis. So again, I don't want to go through every single record, but you can get a feel for the guys who have played it often, have played it well. The one person I do want to highlight is Sergio, 10-4-1. He's the only player in this field with 10 wins in the pod stage or pod portion of the tournament. He has made the bracket rounds the past 3 years, and 3 of the 5. He likes Austin Country Club for whatever it is. He likes Austin Country Club. So bringing these records over, I did not bring the results. We can refer back to it if we need to, but I did bring these records over. And if you haven't seen the reveal of the pods, here's where they are. And of course, I color coded them so the players that are in one pod here and then that pod, and I'll explain why they're so close together here in a bit. But the reason that they are organized the way they are is kind of like March Madness in the sense that the number 1 seed, John Rahm, will play the number 16 seed if they both advance. So John Rahm would play Brooks in the round of 16 if they met. So think of a March Madness bracket: 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, 3 versus 14, all the way down the line till you get to the 8 and 9. Now, they do not reseed after the pod format. So if Sebastian Munoz were to win this pod, he will go up against the winner of this pod regardless, no matter if it's Brooks or HV3 or Eric Van Rooyen, whoever it is. This bracket is set. So I'm just going to call it pod 1. They might call it something different, but I'm going to just call it pod 1. You have Rahm, Reed, Young, and Munoz. Munoz played it last year, 0-3. So it looks like there's 2 pretty big standouts here. You do have the unknown with Cameron Young, with the exception of Scotty Scheffler last year, who went 1-0-2 in the pod stage. I don't get the sense that first-time players have done really well here. In fact, I believe Scheffler might be one of the only ones to have made the bracket stage as a first-time starter. There's pod 1, Rahm, Reed, Young, Munoz. I think you would have to think it would be one of these 2. Reed, just because of the format, he loves match play. Captain America. Pod 16, Brooks, Shane Lowry, Harold Varner III, and EVR. EVR did make the bracket stage last year at 2-1. Brooks 5-3-1. Shane Lowry has not played this event well. 2-7-3 during the pod stages, has never made the bracket rounds, which is interesting because generally Euros do fairly well in this style of event, but Shane Lowry hasn't for whatever reason. So there is pod 16. I don't want to do too much analysis, more so than just showing records and who's in the pods. Plus the DFS Tactics tomorrow, or in addition to, I should say, in addition to the DFS Tactics show tomorrow, I'm going to give my predictions. I'm going to fill out my bracket, tell you who I think is going to win and all that stuff. Have a little bit of fun with it. So if you would like to fill out a bracket with me, by all means, would love the little bit of trash talk and a little bit of banter and some small wages. I'm still waiting on somebody to show up again and chat for a wager that we made at at the Genesis. So, but anyway, that's Pod 16. Pod 8, Dustin Johnson, Max Homa, Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts, and Mac Hughes. You've got one seasoned vet of match play. And then Darnell, yo, your ears must have been burning, pal. I haven't forgotten our little wager. I was right on it, but I'm gonna let you off easy. It was a pretty simple make the cut versus miss the cut. Neither of us went much on a limb. We'll put it that way. So I got you there. I'm 1-0 on you, but hopefully you've been doing well. Glad to see you back on chat. How was the Valspar? How the past couple of weeks been for you? So there's Pod 8, DJ, Homa, Kick Me in the Nuts, and Mac Hughes. Pod 9, Bryson DeChambeau, Taylor Gooch, Lee Westwood, and Richard Bland. Richard Bland being a newcomer. DeChambeau has not played this event well. He has went 1-2-0 both tries he's been at the match play. Taylor Gooch 0-2-1, and you got the seasoned vet of Lee Westwood at 5-6-4. Lee Westwood very rarely makes it to the bracket stage either. So, I mean, you've got 4 players here who have never been. I mean, Richard Bland's never been here, period. And the 3 players that have never made it to the bracket stage. So somebody is going to make their first trip into the knockout rounds. I don't know. An interesting little grouping there. Pod 5. This you might hear if you're a follower of soccer or football around the world. You'll hear terms group of death and whatnot. To me, there are 2 possible. Yeah, I got you. I was a believer in Max Homa that week. I believe he topped 25 or something. Yeah, it was. We'll run it back. Okay. Fill out a bracket. I'll do mine tomorrow, Darnell. We'll see. We'll go double or nothing on something. But you might hear the term group of death. Generally signifying that all the teams in there are really good, or it's going to be hard to advance out of that pod or that grouping. I see 2 potential groups of death, if you will. Pod 5 is definitely one of them. Scotty Scheffler, your runner-up last year. Fitzpatrick, who's 6-9-0. He's made the bracket stage, I think, once in the 5 years, but I mean, he can go out and get his wins. Tommy Fleetwood has played well in this event, and Ian Poulter, no explanation needed. So that is a very, very strong pod there, and the winner of that pod is going to have to earn it. I would not be surprised if a 1-1-1 was very competitive in that pod. That pod's going to be fun to watch. So there is Pod 5. Pod 12. Your defending champion, Billy Horschel, Thomas Peters, Tom Hoagie, and Minwoo Lee. So you've got 2 first-timers, Billy Horschel, your defending champ, and Thomas Peters, which will be interesting if Scheffler and Horschel do end up winning their pod. Instead of meeting in the championship like they did last year, they'll meet in the round of 16. So just the way it works. But as interesting as a grouping Pod 5 is, this is just my take. Pod 12 is kind of a snoozer. I mean, Tom Hoagie's been playing very, very well, but there's not a lot of analysis to do. He's never played this event. Minwoo Lee, same thing. And I don't know much of Minwoo Lee in general anyway. So this one's kind of a snoozer for me. Pod 4. Patrick Cantley, Sung Jae, Seamus Power, and Keith Mitchell. Patrick Cantley, solid, 5-3-1. Sung Jae was only 1-2 last year. Keith Mitchell was 1-2, I believe, in 2019. So an interesting group. I would think Patrick Cantley would have to be the favorite, but interesting group there on Pod 4. Pod 13, Terrell Hatton, Daniel Berger, Siwoo Kim, and Christian Bezadenhout. Bezadenhout last year, 0-2-1, did not have a good first visit here to the match play. Terrell Hatton has played this event very well. He's like Tommy Fleetwood, 6-4-2. It's very solid. Daniel Berger is somebody that surprises me because his all-around game is so good. But he has not performed well at this event. 3-9-0, including a couple of 0-3s in his 4 tries here. So not a lot to like there with Daniel Berger. I like the player, but not the results. And then Siwoo Kim, 3-6-3. So you've got, I mean, to me, it's a pretty clear favorite in the pod of Terrell Hatton, but that's why you play match play. You don't play it on paper. We're going to come up here to the top right. So pod 6, Justin Thomas, Kevin Kisner, Mark Leishman, and Luke List. This was also a contender for the group of death, but I think it's third in that contention. Justin Thomas, no explanation needed. Kevin Kisner loves this format. 9-5-1. His 2 times, or maybe 3 times, making it out of the pods, he's went winner, runner-up. So Kevin Kisner, 9-5-1. This is all playing Punta Cana on Super Draft. Yeah, no, I'll be covering the Corrales Wednesday night. I will have the full show, research, data dive, and DFS all in one night, just like an alternate event. Alternate events normally are Tuesday nights for me, but because the match play starts on Wednesday, I got to get that done, and then I'll move into the Corrales for Wednesday night. But coming back to match play in pod 6 here, so Kisner loves this format. Mark Leishman, 6-6-3. He has made it into the bracket stage a couple of times. So this is a very strong group as well. Luke List he's been playing good, but he's 1-5 in the match play. So he looks to be the clear 4th, but is playing well. Pod 11, Jordan Spieth, Adam Scott, Justin Rose, and Keegan Bradley. We'll do a friendly on Corrales. Yeah, that sounds good. I'm still going to do my bracket for the match play. So you set the terms, and we'll figure something out. Pod 11, Spieth is by far and away the one with the most success here at the match play, 9-3-3. Justin Rose has played it well when he's played. He's generally like Adam Scott, who's ironically in the same pod. These two, even though they qualify, they don't really play it all that often. Adam Scott is 1 time, was 1-1-1. Justin Rose, 3-1-2. I think you have a pretty strong 3 here, and then Keegan is a pretty clear 4th for me, 0-2-4. So, I mean, he averages 1 loss and 2 halves a year, but that's just not going to get it done. You have to go out and win your matches. So, interesting pod there. Pod 3 is the one I'll call the new timers, even though a couple of guys have played it. This is the one I've called the new timers. Pod 3, Victor Hovland, Will Zalatoris, Cameron Tringali, and Sepp Straka. I call it newcomers because Hovland and Zalatoris both played it last year, and that's the only time any of this grouping, this pod, is played. So Tringali, Straka never played it. Zalatoris, 1-1-1. Hovland, 1-2-0. So interesting. It's a very, very interesting pod, especially up the top with Hovland and Zalatoris. Don't sleep on Straka. Don't sleep on Tringali. They're here for a reason. They're top 64 in the world. But interesting grouping up here at the top. You would have to think it'd be between those two to move on. Pod 14, Neiman, Na, Henley, and Maverick McNeely. McNeely never played. Neiman last year got beat out in a playoff. I think he was with Scheffler, to be honest with you. He was 1-0-2, just like Scheffler was. And just got beat in the playoff to not make it to the bracket rounds. Kevin Na has not played this event well in the past year or two, but starting out, he was really strong in this event. Kevin Na is not someone to sleep on. He is 7-6-2. Henley 2-3-1. Pod 7, Xander, Tony Finau, Lucas Herbert, and Takumi Kanaya. Kind of like Pod 3 in the sense you've got 2 first-timers, but Xander and Tony Finau are more seasoned in the match play format than Victor and Will. Yeah, Xander 4-2-3, Tony Finau 4-4-1, pretty evenly matched, I would think. And then Herbert and Kanaya, newcomers. I've never been high on Herbert. Yes, he won the Bermuda, deserving to be here. I've just never been too high on him. And Kanaya, just don't know much about. Moving into Pod 10, for me, this is the other group of death. You've got Louis, Paul Casey, Corey Connors, and Alex Noren. And surprisingly, Corey Connors is the clear-cut fourth for me. Louis, 9-6-0. He's made the bracket round 3 of the 5 times. Paul Casey, 8-4-3. He's made the bracket round 3 of the 5 times. Alex Noren, 8-1. He's made the bracket round 2 of his 3 times. This group here is stud field in terms of match play. An exciting group, just like Pod 5. I'm interested to see what happens in Pod 5. I'm interested to see what happens in Pod 10. This is going to be a fun one. Don't sleep on Alex Noren. He's been my sleeper coming into this. It's a kind of a shame that he got paired with Louis and Paul Casey, who both love this format. Because coming into this week, I thought Alex Noren might be pretty dangerous, considering the way he's played, coming off a very good, I believe a top 12, at least a top 15 at the Valspar. So Alex Noren's one to watch out for. To wrap this up here fairly quickly, Pod 2, Colin Morikawa, Jason Kokrak, Sergio, and Bobby McIntyre. Bobby Mack made the knockout rounds last year at 1-0-2. Sergio loves this event. He's made it to the bracket rounds the past 3 years. And even though Colin Morikawa is in this group, he just didn't play this well last year. Maybe it was a bad tournament. But I think Sergio, for me, is the clear favorite in Pod 2. And then finally, Pod 15, Abraham Answer, Webb Simpson, Brian Harmon, and Bubba Watson. And to be fair, this is a pretty good little grouping here. I mean, Brian Harmon and Bubba Watson generally play well and make it to the knockout rounds and do well when they get there. Abraham Answer has never made it to the knockout round, but is 2-1 both years. He's just been beat in a playoff to get there. So another strong grouping. So this will be a fun group as well. So that is a look at the pods and the way the bracket shapes up. If you didn't catch the show live, jump in the comments. Who do you think has an early advantage, or just when you're looking at the bracket, who do you think has the advantage? Who do you think the group of death is? Let me know. And just a reminder, tomorrow will be the DFS Tactics. We'll have some fun. I'll fill out the bracket live. If you all want to challenge with me, we'll figure out who has the best bracket next week and whatnot, and give a shout out to who has the best bracket. And then Wednesday night, we have the full show of the Corrales Punta Cana, the research, the data, and the DFS Tactics. So a lot going on this week. It'll be a fun week. So hopefully your brackets are doing well in March Madness as well. So for any of the wagers that you've already made this week at the Dell or Corrales, for any of the wagers you're thinking about making for the Dell or the Corrales, and until I see you tomorrow night for the DFS and bracket fill out for the Dell match play, may all your bets be profitable.